Thank you so much for listening to the Advertising Podcast. Today, we're going to go over taking a look at a few different brands and how they're using both SMS and email to connect with their audience. Jerry, anything you want to open up with before we get into it?
Well, yeah, looking at these was very interesting, and it was similar tactics, but a couple little tweaks that could be made here and there to make things pop a little bit better. And you should be able to leave this podcast with a few tips and tricks for your email campaigns too.
Breaking down advertisements, improving on them, redefining ad space. This is the Advertising Podcast.
Stephanie, thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am one of the few that knew what I wanted to do. Starting in high school, I decided to take a class around marketing, and we had to promote an item from the then newly released Harry Potter book. Nice. And I ended up doing it with the 4 Ps and quickly fell in love with everything doing with advertising and marketing. I ended up getting my degree in strategic communications or advertising from there. And also, I did love analytics, even at a young age, in the business side of things. And so a few years later, I decided to go back to school and get my MBA. And nice. I started out in newspaper advertising, selling ads. Which is kind of a funny family business. I have a lot of family members that have done the same. Even my parents met in a newspaper working.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Jerry worked in a newspaper too, actually.
Yep.
Oh, really?
That was how I got into ad sales as well. And I took the job almost as a joke, and then I fell in love with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was unfortunate to see how newspapers dwindled over the years and their lack of digital adoption.
Right.
But it did lead me into working for an e-commerce company. I managed the affiliate team for 3 years. And then the economy crashed, and they decided to move our entire company to our home headquarters in Atlanta. And out of around 200 people, only 10 people or so made the move. It was a really chaotic time. I took on a lot of different marketing activities with making the move with the company, including email marketing. And I really felt like, oh, this is my sweet spot. I fell in love with the art and science that had to do with email. That creative side that I had to come up with campaigns, but then also to have the analytics to understand what worked, what didn't, what could we tweak going forward to make it better.
Nice.
Yeah. And then when I was looking to make my kind of next move or next pivot, I got contacted by a company that was based in the Bay Area to be their first email hire across their global portfolio of brands. So the company is called Boston Hill for Boston Brands. And when I left this past May, I was managing a third of the marketing team. And so it was including CRM, so email, catalog, and direct mail, content and social media, and reputation management. And I, for the past few years, part-time, and then more so full-time, I've been working on my business, Propel and Flourish Consulting. So helping customers craft customer-centric messages to reach their audiences, all by typically reducing sends and boosting revenue per customer.
Nice.
Right on.
And so on that, what do you have for us today?
Yeah, what are we looking at?
Sure. So I've pulled 3 different brands. They're email messages or email text messages, just to give them a once over or an audit to see really what things stood out. and maybe what things they could improve on in the future.
All right, perfect. Well, that sounds good. Well, I've got them all here. Which one would you want me to pull up first?
Let's go over the Jenny Kane example first.
All right. So with this one, let's see. Let me pull up both the images. Then the actual PDF of the email itself. First of all, what are these?
Jenny Kane. Oh, you're talking about the pre-header. So
Yeah.
within the Jenny Kane is pulling in images from the email itself. And this is something that I've only seen a few brands doing on Gmail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, probably has to do with AMP. I did some research before and I wasn't able to come up with an example of it. But AMP is some really cool technology where you can use interactability within Gmail messages to power things like quizzes and even adding cards within messages itself. So I think that's what they're doing, but I'm not sure. But it definitely pops in the inbox. You're taking up a lot of real estate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of the things I like. Because I mean, anything you can do to stand out, especially if it's either a cold email or anything like that. I mean, this is probably, I'm assuming, to their current customers, right? But still, even with that, open rates are going to be low. So anything you can do to increase that.
Yeah, that looks fantastic in that inbox. Like, holy cow.
Yeah, I also like the subject line too. So talking about the 5-star reviews. Anytime we pull in reviews, I've seen tremendous success with brands. There's nothing more than, your fellow customer liking a product and showcasing that you probably will like it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so here's the email itself, and yeah, 5-star reviews are in. That's solid.
Yep.
Yeah, I like to moving away from kind of the header and having it be clean and getting more into the body of the message itself. The copy too is very simplistic. It's the images are doing the talking, which I think that this jacket, it makes sense.
Sure.
I like that the quotes that they use put in really great attributes since you're not feeling and touching it, so it's easy to layer. Okay,
Right.
That's great to know.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting
cool.
texture. Yeah. Just really
and it's
great.
cool. It's cool that you've got like social proof here, right? Like, so you've got like these reviews. I'm assuming these are real reviews that they're just pulling quotes from. I mean, that's nice.
Yeah. As you're scrolling, it takes a while to scroll down. That would
Sure.
be my question is, well, is it too much or is it enough? And I see more brands in the apparel space having longer messages. So I'm guessing that they're testing and it's working. We saw GIFs for a while. And so maybe that's, waning from popularity.
Right. When it seems like there's a lot of gaps too in it, like they're using the pictures are huge, and then those could probably be smaller, so that you can get down to the shop now button a little bit quicker, or have some more shop now buttons scattered throughout the email. But
yeah. I mean, in the primary section, there is that shop now, but it's hidden. It's not,
Sure.
It's not really.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it's a little hidden.
But yeah, it is hard. It is kind of hard to see.
And it's only on that top image, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think having a call to action on each, so that each section has its own little call to action would probably be a decent idea. So as a GM, I'm not sure you need like 4 or 5. I don't know how many exactly there are, but there's like 5 or so, like picture end quote and picture end quote.
Right.
Yeah. I really like this section that you're on now.
Yeah.
I like to offer outs within messages. I think that we know that click-through rates, average might be 3%. So you have 97% that aren't interested in the jacket. And so showcasing other things that they're interested in, I think is great, just to get people to click through to the site.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Interesting. One of the things that's interesting about this, and most brands don't do this, is this 15% off. Almost every brand, like if they're offering 15% off, that would be the message, and the headline, the subject line would be some version of, get 15% off today only, or something like that. Whereas this is very much not a value. This is talking about the how great the clothes are and how much everyone loves them and blah blah blah, and then offering a 15% off. That I think is such an important thing, especially if now it's a little different because I am assuming this is going to current customers, but especially if you're communicating with people that don't know like who you are or what your brand does, then offering a discount doesn't matter. Because if someone said, hey, I'll give you 10% off something random, that means nothing to you, right?
Well, yeah, you don't know that it's a quality product. You don't even know you want it. Yeah,
right, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a brand that is promotionally averse, so that I don't get a lot of offers from them, with that discount. But also, it speaks to the quality of their goods. They don't need to scream about a discount.
right.
Everyday value is great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've always kind of liked the move of not just like going crazy with discounts. It devalues the brand. To me, it's not always the case, but it has that feel.
Right, I agree, and I think it's a slippery slope. And if you're not careful, you're the Bed Bath and Beyond, where no one shops at you until you get the 20% in the mail.
Right, exactly. And there's some major brands. I mean, JCPenney is like always the example of a major brand where they discounted themselves basically out of business, to where you get used to waiting for some sort of crazy sale, and then they ended up pivoting to have no sales, which essentially broke the company because people were like, well, then we won't shop there anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a solid email. I guess to sort of summarize that, tell your story, build value first before you offer a discount, if you offer one at all. And then use cool tools to make yourself stand apart in the inbox.
Yeah, so you can at least get an open. Yeah, right on.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's dig into another. So good job, Jenny Kane.
Thumbs up all around to you.
Yeah, that's right. Except super long email, but like you said, they may have tested that, and maybe that works well.
Right.
Right.
Which one do you want to take a look at? Tie bar next?
Yeah, we can do tie bar next.
All right. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. Boom, 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 boom.
Come on, Skip, you got this.
Exactly. Close.
Well, I can't say anything. I couldn't record this earlier, so yeah.
That's right.
Just an opportunity to bust your chops is all.
Exactly. No, that's good. All right. So this one's text message, right?
Yeah. So got a text message from Tie Bar about Tie Crush Tuesday. And this stood out to me. It was like, I didn't know it was Tie Crush Tuesday. And it spoke like a limited edition wool from Italy's oldest mill. Well, that screams quality. And It's only $35 today. So it's a limited time offer.
Yeah.
There's a shirt company that had almost very similar copy one time. I think it's Paul Fredericks, maybe something like that. But it talked about the fine Egyptian cotton shirt, blah 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 blah, made from, and then it talked about the quality of the product, and then it was like a super cheap call to action like $22 or something like that.
Mm.
And this was quite some time ago, but I ended up buying it because it's like you're building, there again, you're building value in the product of the thing, and then it's like, oh wow, sounds expensive, and then you say, oh, it's only $35, which not bad for a tie nowadays.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
And then if we kind of look at the subject line of pre-header, it's a little interesting. I like it. I like hashtag tie crush. I don't know. To me, I see it, the hashtag, that captures my attention. I think it's a little bit of the same message as what we're receiving in the text, and knowing that you'll probably, if you're signed up to receive text messages, you're probably already receiving emails. So it could have been good for them to mix it up a little bit. I also kind of went back in their emails too. This tie crush is something that just popped up this Tuesday. I haven't seen it, at least not in my recent history of emails or text messages from them.
Sure.
Which maybe will add a little bit of interest, like, maybe this isn't going to be an ongoing thing, or maybe it's just this week only. The other aspect of the subject line or pre-header that isn't great is that it showcases the alt text, the tie bar logo, and then it has the URL.
I saw
exactly.
that. I definitely saw that. That's a misstep for sure.
Yeah,
Let me pull
definitely.
in that image actually. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, this is something that is so this is majority.
That's the other one. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, this is something that it's kind of like a big fail because also too, let's be it's got the UTM tag like in there and stuff, which to me just screams like anytime I say UTM tag should be used, those are good tools to use, but like when that's up here in front, it just screams like sales to me, right? Like it screams, it's kind of like a reminder that, oh yeah, that's right, this is an ad that's supposed to try to sell me something.
And I have a feeling it'll probably end up with that email getting flagged by a lot of accounts, ended up in spam or getting pushed to a promotions folder automatically, and
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just watch your alt alt text, I guess, is the moral of that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and then share screen. So now it's taken to the actual email itself.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks good here. Like that looks solid. This week's hashtag tie crush.
Mm-hmm. Really like how they talk about like it sells out every time. Like I think that's a really great way to get people to buy now versus waiting. Yeah. And then showcasing the images and the colorways. And like the last example, complete this look, upsell, shop shirts, or even if you're not interested in the collection, it's great. Save the sell, get them to click to the site.
Yeah, no, this is a solid email. I mean, it's solid examples of good use of imagery, showing it both on a model and off.
Mm-hmm.
Good. I don't really have much to add to this one either, but let's take all right. That's good. So now dig it into the next one. Close all that. So now let's take a look at the majority, the one that I accidentally pulled up to begin with anyway.
Right.
All right. So majority is so this one's text message.
Yeah. this spoke to me in like feeling lackluster. Absolutely. It's, towards the end of January. I think that's kind of the mode that most people feel at the end of January. Like, hey, the weather's kind of bland outside. The photo showcases like very colorful pieces of jewelry and like pops of vibrant hues. I'm like, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for spring.
Absolutely.
The next one, I had trouble kind of capturing it, but there was a GIF, and so it was kind of popping in jewels with that first message.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which is like something pretty cool. And then it had a link, which pulled up with an image too.
And having GIFs, I mean, it's such an easy way to like make your stuff truly stand out, right? Like, it takes only a few more minutes on the design side, and like it works on almost everything. I don't know, they're magical to me. Anytime you can add animation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially to your text messages. It's stood out.
Yeah. Stephanie, can you speak to the metrics on GIFs versus a static image and how people interact with them?
It's interesting. It depends by brand. A lot of the brands I've worked with, GIFs haven't had statistically a difference, but I haven't played around with it with SMS. But I would guess with SMS it would. Especially since SMS, you can't have emails, you have multiple messages or multiple images usually. And then with SMS, you have one unless you have a GIF. So inherently, I think it would probably perform better than not. Because you're conveying just more items, or you're showcasing more ways in which that item is showcased, different angles, different models, etc.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
I know that GIFs, I think you're exactly right. I mean, I think GIFs in the body of an email probably don't make as big of a difference, because that's more about telling the story and getting someone, down that path, right? But my assumption is that, like with text message or with we see it a lot in ads, like display ads. GIFs make a huge difference, or any sort of animation increases click-through rate. And I think it's because the number one job is just to grab attention, right? And I would imagine like in SMS, it's probably the same type of thing where your main job is just to get them to actually like read what you've said.
Right.
And it, I think, probably makes a difference. Same thing with like on a website. Like, I'm not sure how much, having an engaging, cool website's important, but I don't know how much that's going to increase like the click-through rate from an email of having like animation in an email. But if you could somehow animate it to get them to open the email, that would be cool.
Right.
Yeah, being able to add that to the headline in the email, into the subject line, like that one company was doing it. That's the ticket.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so the email itself, subject line is pop off. And I like that because it's dealing with the conversation at hand of these vibrant, colorful jewels, but it's not exactly the same message. It's being sent around the same time, but it's a little different. And then
I'm noticing all of these are morning sends too. I think one was like 7 a.m. then like 10 and 11. I wonder, do you know anything about in terms of times of day, like what's the best time to actually send these out?
Sure. A lot of retailers see success around that 7, 8 a.m. hour.
Yeah.
Like going to work, checking emails to drop the kids off at school. But definitely testing it too. I mean, these are coming out midday. You're kind of hitting before that lunch, aspect where you're probably checking your email again.
Sure.
But I see more success earlier, the better around usually. But I've also seen success too, like you get the wine drinkers at night. So it could depend on the brand.
Absolutely. I guess
Sure.
being mindful about like who are you actually sending this to, and like what's likely going on in their life,
Mhm.
I know, and when I would in doing like cold emails and B2B emails and things to businesses,
Mhm.
I found that Friday at like 3 or so is like a great time to send those out, because especially if you're dealing with like mid-tier management, because they're checked out, right? Like they're kind of not working anyway, so that's when they're more likely to open up a random email,
Right.
because they're
Mhm.
sitting there waiting for the weekend, right?
Yeah, or they've got a cocktail in one hand and they're just sitting here playing on their phone in the other.
Yeah, right,
Right.
exactly. Um,
Right.
and so I think it just depends. Um, it all depends on like kind of who your target is.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. What's interesting about this tie bar example in the jury is that they're sending emails and text messages around the same time.
Mm.
And so I wonder if they tested that, or if you send it maybe a text message first and follow up with an email, how that would differ in terms of that revenue per customer.
Yeah, that's actually. I would be curious to know if there is some sort of correlation between doing it at the same time, or if it's just the same team, and so it just kind of happens by default that they send them out around the same time. Um,
Maybe.
but it would make sense that if you're sending it out at roughly, because when you're most likely to just be uh, kind of like we were saying, sitting around with not much to do anyway, it seems like that's when you're most likely to respond to both those things. So
Right.
it makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, and I mean, if they sent the email first and then fired off the text, it's like, yeah, the email it's going to pop in and you may look at it or not. But then if you get a text to kind of poke you again to revisit it, like, hey, there's treasure in that email, you need to go look, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that is part of the strategy with it, because I believe that this email arrived first and then the text message 15 minutes or so later.
Right. I like the look of the email too. I like how they use, like, if you scroll back up and look at the imagery. I like how they went with the bigger pictures up at the top, like how some of the stuff is coming out of the frame and it creates
Yeah.
movement without there being movement, and they used vibrant colors, and visually it looks very good.
This type of, I forget what this is called, what this type of graphic design is called, but yeah, I actually like that, where it looks like it's obviously this is all just one image, but it looks like it's kind of breaking the image, right? Because it looks like,
Right.
one image and then it's got, jewelry popping out around it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
which is the subject line, pop off.
Mhm.
And
yeah,
really accurate.
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah. And then that cheer up section kind of plays into the text message, but in a little bit more graphic terms. Because the weather's blah doesn't mean that you have to be.
Yeah, right, exactly. This Make It Pop, is that something that they is that part of their ongoing brand, or is that kind of like is this just kind of a one-time thing?
I think it's a one-time thing.
Oh.
It's cool.
Yeah.
And I wonder about the quip about the weather. I wonder if this was like weather triggered or something, like that there's bad weather in this region or whatever. So they created this or had it packed away and then pushed it out just because they know people are maybe trapped at home, maybe doing online shopping or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know either. I know that they're based out of Toronto, so they're used to the winter blues.
Sure. Right. Exactly. Where it's even more bland and blah this time of year, right? But,
Right?
They
Yeah.
would probably say it's not.
Toronto's not as cold as Chicago, I found out.
Where is not?
Toronto's not as cold as like Chicago gets far colder on average than Toronto.
The wind, and that lake effect, I think makes
Yeah.
Chicago. I grew up in Nebraska, and it's kind of on the same plane, and the wind is what makes it worse, in my opinion. But yeah,
Right, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, that lake effect stuff.
yeah.
So to kind of, I mean, so for when crafting, really, I think having a solid SMS message and SMS type ongoing conversation and email conversation, I mean, you're keeping both of those tactics alive with your current buyers or with people that have purchased from you. I mean, that's um, that's crucial, right? Because the most likely people to buy from you today are the ones who bought from you in the previously, right? Is there any sort of thought around like is SMS doing better than email, or is email doing better, or does it really require both?
Yeah, I think that the best way to look at it is they complement one another. And so there's a statistic by Klaviyo, and it's something like there's 138% increase or something that high, that if you use email and SMS together versus just using email. So revenue per customer is increasing. I think
That makes
that,
sense.
yeah, I mean, my tolerance for emails is probably higher than the average person, right? So I sign up for a lot of emails.
Sure.
Text messages, that's a little different, right? You're not probably going to sign up for all the text messages in the world. I'm doing it for research, and it's annoying and blowing up my phone. It's not something that I recommend, right? You're going to probably have a handful. And so I think that's important to keep in mind too, that you're in a space that is, mainly friends and family are in it. You want to keep it conversational and probably light and on brand, and know that I think that you can gather a lot of names, but you got to be really relevant to them. You're probably going to be a frequent shopper or a buyer, or just stay on it.
Sure. Right. So yeah, so your text message list is probably your like absolute like most people most in love with your brand. Because I think you're right. I give my email address to just about anybody, right? But my cell phone number is much more like protected and stuff.
That's a much more personal thing. Yeah. At this other little business I've got, we have a loyalty program. It's not even a texting program. It's just a loyalty program. And people are hyper resistant to put in their phone number. And I have to reassure them, like, I'm not pushing any information to you. This is just for you to like build points when you come in here. And because they're really apprehensive about it. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. You protect it usually at all costs.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's plenty of people like me who just give fake email addresses whenever they go out. Mine has been BieberFan3000 at AOL.com for a long time.
It's so funny. I have an account like that too, and people sometimes look at me funny, and I'm like, "Oh, you have no idea how many emails I get," and no, I can't.
Well, there's this SaaS company that I was in talks with actually, and we were thinking about almost making a merger with them, but they literally have their business is building fake email aliases. They're like one-time things. So like if you're signing up on an email or for like on a website or something, you can actually generate a one-time use email that will allow you to verify that email, but then it burns that email right after it. So it's kind of a cool thing. But
that is pretty cool.
Yeah. So That's something that's coming, I'm sure, is people will have like burner email addresses.
Yeah. Well, and also too with um, Instagram ads, and you can sign up for email, but I believe Apple will give a anonymous email, so you're getting the message, but they're not getting your exact email address to keep that
Sure.
layer of privacy.
Right. Are there so that service you were talking about, Skip, is probably like this, but are there services out there that do the same thing like a Google Voice number does, where you can set up a separate email address and then connect other ones to it, so nobody has your like real one, but it kind of can filter through that?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what this company did. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think there are other companies like that, and you can always you can always set up like a
Another
Gmail
fake one,
alias.
yeah, that just
Yeah, that just forwards.
Mhm.
I will say though, thinking from a brand standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, there are some companies that like I love their email address. I love their emails that they send. Right, like there's David Miller's one. There's a few different companies that like I actually like genuinely look forward to when I get an email from them. And I think that's the goal, right? The goal of any company should be like you should want people to want to give you their real email address because they're like, oh, I hope you send me discounts and offers and things because I want to know what's up.
Yeah, exactly. I don't get worried as a marketer about the emails being harder to get because you don't want to send to people that don't want to hear from the brand at the end of the day.
Yep.
And I think it's up to us of gathering their interests and preferences to make it relevant. And it's a little bit harder work, I think, on our end to capture that data. But at the end of the day, it's just going to make what we're sending them better.
Exactly. Yeah, there's that sort of fine line between it's getting to where almost every single transaction, especially like retail transaction and those types of things, where you're very much compelled to give them your email address. And sometimes it's like, look, I just want to buy this one thing. I have no interest in like your brand like ever again. But there's those people where I am just buying this from this store that I'm only planning on going to once. I'm then not going to be reading the emails anyway, right? So yeah, to your point, if we are moving to a world where like things like burner email addresses and all of that stuff becomes a thing, it's just going to get the people off your list that wouldn't have opened or bought anything anyway, so it's fine. If anything, it'll make open rates go up, right? Because the only people you'll have access to are the real people who actually care about your brand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
absolutely.
I think so. Just to sort of summarize, I think the themes: short text, catchy headers, beware alt text in your header, right? Anything you do to stand out in either a text message or inbox, look for new technologies and be on the lookout for those things. And then really try to think of building the value of your, before you mention price or discount or anything, first build value in your product.
Value. And then maybe throughout the email, provide multiple opportunities for people to connect to the website, shop now, that kind of thing.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Advertising Podcast, the podcast where we fix broken ads. Please remember that while marketing is an art, advertising is a science, and we at Draft Advertising Technology have the tools and tricks to help you treat it that way. For a bunch of early access to free tools, go to draftadtech.com. That's draftadtech.com. And of course, please like, subscribe, share, and if you leave us a review, just include your name or even the name of your company, and we'll mention you on air.